What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the NFL final look picks for tomorrow. We have only a 10-gamer after that 3-game Thanksgiving Day slate, so pretty short slate, not getting overwhelmed with like a 13-gamer. And some of these games are not that appealing. We can kind of cross them off and just focus on some of these teams and some of these games that should be potential shootouts. So let's get right into the video. As always, if you enjoyed the content, appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. If you're looking to check out Prize Picks and get some free money when you sign up, you can use my code. It's process. It's in the description. You can check out Twitter for updates, and just to stay in touch, it's at the DFS Process, and you can check out the website, dfsprocess.net, if you want to join for tomorrow. So at the quarterback position here, Tom Brady is $7,600. This game has the highest total on the board as of now. It should be like a high-scoring game. The Colts defense is pretty solid. At least they have been solid recently. But the Tampa Bay's offense can just put up points in a hurry. After getting kind of shut out by Washington and Tom Brady really struggling early on in that game, he kind of stepped up in the second half, and then he stepped up real big time against the Giants. Not that that is super surprising, but threw for over 300 yards. He doesn't have Antonio Brown again this week, so it just makes it easier to stack Tom Brady with Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin, or you can go with Gronk and do like a 3-man stack, or at least like a 2-man stack if you wanted to, because Gronk is super underpriced on Draftkings. We'll talk about him. And then you have Jalen Hurts, who fresh off of 3 rushing touchdowns, count them, after a little stretch where Hurts was not really winning you a lot of money if you played him in DFS with 19 and 16 and 11. Came right back with a 31 spot in a rout against the Saints. 11-point victory, but they were up by 3 touchdowns in the fourth. Simeon got some garbage time stats at the end. I mean, he's fine. I think you can go cheaper if you wanted to. Justin Herbert is one of my favorites this week. He's $6,600. The Chargers seem to always be involved in some of these high-scoring games. It was a 47-42 game against Cleveland last week. It was 41-37. Seems like all of their games are getting, or a lot of these games are getting, north of 50 points. And this spot, it's not the easiest one going into Denver. Denver's defense has been middle of the pack at times this year. They've been good at just holding teams out of the end zone, but they still got blown up at times this year with the Cowboys piling up some points against them. And this Chargers offense is super legit. Herbert has a bunch of weapons, not only Eckler, but Mike Evans had a bit of a resurgence last week, and he still has Keenan Allen, who's getting 10 to 13 targets every single game. So in the 6K range, I'm liking Justin Herbert at this salary. Other plays in the 6K range would be like Joe Burrow at only $6,200, Kirk Cousins $6,300. The 5K range, you have Carson Wentz. After a huge, monstrous performance last week by Jonathan Taylor, it's a tough one. I mean, if you thought the Bills' rush defense was solid, you have the Bucs now back-to-back weeks. So if Taylor goes off against the Bucs like he did last week, then just give him the MVP. But I think this is a game where they'll have to utilize Carson Wentz's arm more, and he's been very solid this year. It hurts me a bit to say, but 18 touchdowns, only 3 picks. He's really doing a good job not turning the ball over. And he still has some good weapons that he can throw to, with Pittman as a nice stack who's affordable. I don't mind going to Garoppolo. He's only 57 just because he's so cheap that if it's not like you're expecting Garoppolo to put up a huge game, but if it gets you close to 20, if not a little bit over 20, that's going to be really good value. So I don't mind getting to Garoppolo. You still have him pairing with Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, the running back, Mitchell. So a lot of ways that you can pair Garoppolo if you wanted to take a shot with him. And then you have some running quarterbacks here with, he's Cam Newton, gives you some upside with the legs. He's 56. I probably like him a little bit more than Tua. And then you can take like punt plays on Matt Ryan, Lawrence, Bridgewater, not guys that I'm feeling great confidence in. And Wilson is back, but you talk about 2 really tough teams. The Jets against Houston might be one where you look to the defenses. I don't really see myself playing Zach Wilson unless you're making a bunch of teams. At running back, you have Jonathan Taylor. People might go back to him in this week. I mean, he was super low owned, so it's not like a lot of people were on him last week, but some people might chase that game. I potentially probably won't be, just because the matchup is so tough against Tampa. If it goes off this week, then I'll just tip my cap. McCaffrey's 9K against Miami. Last week he had a great game once again. He's been really solid. He's only had like one pretty bad game against Houston, one poor game against New England, but otherwise, he's in the games that he has played, he's been in the mid-20s. Cam Newton might take some away from McCaffrey in terms of just getting you rushing touchdowns because Cam Newton loves to just take it himself when they're inside the 5. Eckler, 84. He's not my favorite guy to pair with Justin Herbert, but he's in play if you're stacking up the Chargers. He's probably like my second option or third option maybe, but gives you so much touchdown upside. He has 13 touchdowns on the year. And even though he's not getting like 15 carries on the ground, he's still getting so much work out of the backfield with receptions that he's always in plays. They like to utilize him a lot in the red zone. Najee gets a good matchup against Cincy. You can go Dalvin Cook. Probably like Najee Harris a little bit more than Dalvin Cook, just because Harris is on the field. And both guys are on the field most games, but Harris has been getting utilized more in the receiving department. Cook hasn't been as targeted as heavily as he has been in years past, so you're really going to need to rely on Cook to get those rushing touchdowns. It's in the 6K range here. You have a couple guys with Q tags that could shake things up. If there is no Jones, then you want to go to you could look to A.J. Dillon. It's not an easy spot against the Rams defense, but I like James Robinson right now. He's only $6,200. Just not a good game script last week. They got down early. San Francisco held onto the ball for almost the entire first quarter last week. They had the ball for, I think, 11 minutes. So just not a good spot for the Jags to really get their offense going. Not that you would expect them to get their offense going at a lot of these games, but this one against Atlanta, not been very good defensively this year. They're giving up 27 points per game. They're getting run on all over the place on the ground, and Robinson had a late garbage time touchdown last week to somewhat save his fantasy line, but he's a guy that now that he's third week back from injury, seems to be or fourth game back from injury. I think he's only been 3 games back, but now he's back from injury, looks healthy. The price tag is still very affordable, and they haven't really been going to Carlos Hyde at all. So Robinson looks pretty secure in his role. And then Henderson also is a guy that I like. He's only 58 after being he wasn't super expensive, but he got over 7K once. He's been in like the 6K range for most of these games except for early on in the year. But the price tags on him has really plummeted. The Rams coming off back-to-back, pretty embarrassing losses. They were favored in both games, and they lost double digits in both. So I would say it's kind of embarrassing. Going up against the Packers this week, Packers defense has been super solid, so it's not an easy task. But when you give me $5,100 Darrell Henderson, who is on the field for a lot of these snaps, he can also catch passes out of the backfield. I would expect that the Rams try to get guys like Henderson going. Odell should have a bigger week than he did in his debut with the bye week and with just having those extra days. Other plays at running back besides Robinson and Henderson would be Mitchell at 54. If he does suit up, he's questionable right now, dealing with like a finger issue. If he plays, I like him. It's a good spot against a Minnesota defense. There's no Michael Carter, so you'd see Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson kind of split some of that work. The Titans are super banged up, missing their running backs and wide receivers. Foreman should start. It's not a great spot at all. This Patriots defense is no joke, and they also are on the road. So that is just one that I'm not going to be forcing myself to go with some of these values on Tennessee. I expect them to kind of just struggle to score points. I'll leave it at that. Moving on to wide receiver, you have so many good plays this week. At the top end, if you want to break the bank for Cooper Kupp, you can. I probably won't at 96. When you have, probably one of the best wide receivers in football, Kupp is also a great wide receiver, one of the best in football. But we have Devontae Adams $1,000 cheaper. He gets a matchup against Ramsey, so it's tough for him as well. But you can save $1,700 and go to Deebo Samuel, who gets a great matchup against Minnesota. Last week, he basically was a running back. Their running back won. Got 8 carries, 79 yards, and a touchdown, back-to-back rushing touchdowns for Deebo Samuel. He gives you huge big play upside. Only 2 targets. They didn't have to throw the ball. Garoppolo didn't throw much in the second half. They were running the ball, and they were up by 20, or more than 20 because they got the late touchdowns, though. Jacksonville didn't force them to really change their game plan. They kind of just went with some ground and pound last week. This week should be more of a tighter game against Minnesota, more higher scoring, and this is one where you would expect that the offenses go back and forth down the field. So Deebo Samuel, sign me up for him at 79. Jefferson had that big week last week. He's in play, but I might go down to Adam Thielen this week. It's a pretty big gap. $1,600. You're getting a guy that's still getting you 9 to 13 targets in most of these games, 7 in some of these spots, but he loves to be utilized in the red zone. Kirk Cousins always likes to look Adam Thielen's way, and he's not really expensive. Keenan Allen is also a good guy to stack if you want to stack Justin Herbert with him. He's getting you double-digit targets almost every single week. Very safe, gives you a super high floor. But I would have to go with Mike Williams as my favorite Chargers player to pair with Justin Herbert, just because he's so cheap. $5,700 coming off of last week where he had that game-winning touchdown. He put up 21. A string of poor games here. He started off the year as one of the best and hottest wide receivers. He was getting talked about, and then he's gone through a big cold stretch. Still gives you 7 touchdowns compared to Keenan Allen's 2 touchdowns. He's a big body, easy to throw the ball to him in like a jump ball situation in the back of the end zone. And his price tag has completely just dropped off a cliff. When he was at like 77, 81, 71, it's kind of easy to go to other guys that have been producing in that range. But at 57, he's the best option in this range. It might even be better than some of these guys that are, in the high 6K range. And another wide receiver that I like is Chris Godwin. No Antonio Brown this week, so Godwin should continue to benefit. He's really played well without Antonio Brown being that clear second, sometimes first option for Tom Brady. Mike Evans still gives you big touchdown upside, but Godwin has gotten his fair share of touchdowns recently. He has touchdowns in 3 out of his last 4 games. Gives you upside to get you north of 100 yards. And against Indy, you'd expect them to throw the ball a lot and just be kind of a back-and-forth game with both teams fighting and scoring touchdowns. Now, Mike Evans also in play as well, but I like Godwin just slightly more. And then the 6K range, I give you a 7K wide receiver, a 5K wide receiver, a 6K wide receiver that I'm looking at is Deontay Johnson. He's 66. He's one of like the safest wide receivers that you could play week in and week out. At least if Ben Roethlisberger is the quarterback, and he's playing quarterback this week. 13-13, 13-13 targets. So four of his last 5 games, he's gotten you 13 targets. He's averaging well over 10 targets per game. He hasn't had any duds this year. He's been over 10 every single game, which is rare. The price tag is not that expensive. No Juju, obviously, is out for the year. So it's basically Deontay Johnson and Claypool are going to be fighting for a lot of the targets. And Deontay Johnson is the best preferred option for Big Ben. They utilize him in short passes and some deep passes. Gets you some touchdown upside as well. Other guys that you could potentially look to are Brandon Cooks at 58. Elijah Moore, if there is no Corey Davis. He's been a lot bigger part of the offense. The Giants banged up at wide receiver as usual, so maybe Galladay can step up this week, but don't have much confidence in that. You have Ayuk, 53, coming off of a big game. I kind of like the other guys more, like Debo, the running back, Mitchell if he plays, and Kittle. Just I think he might be more popular this week than he should be. The 4K range, if I needed to take a shot on any of these guys, maybe it's MVS. If you think that Jalen Ramsey will kind of slow down Devontae Adams, MVS looks to be a guy that can step up. You have Jamison Crowder, who's always a pretty safe option. He gets you 6 to 9 targets almost every single week. It's not easy to trust him with Zach Wilson as the quarterback, but the price tag is cheap enough that he can produce. Maybe you can throw in Robbie Anderson as a big play kind of threat now that Cam Newton is the quarterback. The tight end plays, top end would be Kittle and Pitts. I prefer probably Kittle, but Pitts is still firmly in play in a great matchup against Jacksonville. I don't have much interest in Mike Gesicki. I think there's some better plays cheaper like Noah Fant. You can go Goddard. There's no Ebron this week, so Freiermuth is super safe as a tight end. But Gronk would be the favorite at only 44. Came right back after missing some games. 8 targets, 6 grabs, 71 yards. He's heavily utilized in the red zone. And there's no Antonio Brown, so he's the third weapon for the team to throw to. If looking for a value pick, it would be maybe you can take a shot on like Donald Parham at 27. He's been getting more snaps as the weeks have gone on. Cook has come back down to earth in terms of just running routes and running some snaps. So he's been cutting into his workload. He's kind of a tournament option, but he's cheap enough that he can catch you a touchdown pass, payoff value. And this one, I do expect the Chargers to throw the ball a lot as usual. And Herbert, if you're playing Herbert, you can pair him with another weapon if you wanted to. But the two guys in the 4K range, Freiermuth and Rob Gronkowski are the two favorites that I'm looking at. Maybe Evan Ingram, just because they're super low on bodies to catch the ball. Conklin, another guy that can get you some targets, but maybe Ingram can maybe step up this week. Defenses, all the way at the bottom would be the Texans. $2,300 are going up against the Jets. So Zach Wilson, big propensity to turn the ball over. I like the Texans defense. They've stepped up the last couple of weeks. 16 and 15 fantasy points. They're at home against a bad offense. Sign me up for them at that price tag. I don't mind going to the Packers if you're not going to play like Henderson in lineups that you don't have him, just because that offense has not looked very good the last couple of weeks. The Packers defense has looked very good all year, and they're at home, so that's always a slight plus for defenses. If you're looking in the mid-range, maybe you have the Titans at $2,900. That game should probably be lower scoring. You have the Patriots all the way at the top end. They would be the team that you can get to if you're not worried about your salary, just because Tennessee just has no weapons this week. It's a hard time seeing them have success against this defense and moving the ball, so definitely looks appealing. And that's pretty much it. So really like the Herbert, Mike Evans, or Mike Williams stack. Bring it back with a couple of other big-time wide receivers that are underpriced. Chris Godwin and Deontay Johnson, two cheap running backs with 20-point upside plus. So that's about it for the DraftKings side. Let's talk about FanDuel. All right, on FanDuel here, quarterback options, you have Hurts as the most expensive option this week. You don't have Lamar, you don't have some other running quarterbacks, so I guess it makes some sense, but I probably won't pay $84 for him. I'd rather go to Tom Brady at $82. Cam Newton is $8K, so that's a big price on him. He's way better of a play on DraftKings. I like Justin Herbert. He's $78, so he is expensive. If you wanted to go cheap this week, you do have a couple of guys in the $6K range that are playable. One would be Jimmy Garoppolo. Is only $65. He's sandwiched in between guys that aren't even active, like Trey Lance. Well, he's active, but he's not going to play much. Lance and Brissett. You have Garoppolo there. I don't know why he's only $6,500, even though he's never like a fun player to roster for fantasy. He's had a couple of good games this year. The price tag is just good enough that you can pay up at wide receiver. This makes it a little bit easier to pay up for some of these guys that do give you upside for big fantasy points. So even if Garoppolo just gives you like 17 or 20, I think it won't be the worst thing in the world. So he's my guy at that price tag. If wanting to pay above 7K, you have Tyrod Taylor. Justin Herbert will be my favorite, will be my second guy, but $1,300 difference, it might make a difference in terms of getting up to like a Chris Godwin or going to like a Cooks or a Pittman or somebody else like that. At running back, Taylor is almost 10K, McCaffrey is almost 10K. They're both playable. I mean, Taylor's playable, but I'm not going to play him in this tough matchup. McCaffrey would be my favorite spend up. Eckler, same price tag on both sides. He's fine. It's easier to pay up on FanDuel for some of these running backs and receivers. But the first guy I want to get to is Robinson again. I think he's just going to have a big week. He might be somewhat lower owned on FanDuel just with the price tag, but 76 isn't that expensive. He's still like their number one playmaker now that he's fully healthy. And this game should be one where they're looking to run the ball more, and they should have success running the ball against this terrible Atlanta defense. And then second option would be Elijah Mitchell, if he does play. He's only $868. When he's been active, they've been giving him the lion's share of work. He even had one game where he got 5 targets, so before that he wasn't getting heavily targeted, but they have been going to him out of the backfield a lot. He gives you upside for about 20-plus touches. The last game that he did play got 27 carries, so big upside just to get you touches in a plus matchup at a very, very appealing price tag. Wide receivers, its most expensive one is Cooper Kupp on both sides. Adams, both guys are fine at the top end. Kupp has the better matchup. I like Debo on both sides. He's only 8K on FanDuel. I still like Chris Godwin. He's just super safe in this matchup without Antonio Brown. Just going to get a lot of looks from Tom Brady. You can double stack with Mike Evans if you wanted to. I like Deontay Johnson on both sides. He's 71 in a very important game against Cincy, just for that division, fighting for like seeding, I guess, at this point already. You have Keenan Allen at 7K, and you have Mike Williams at 66. So it's not as big of a gap as it is on DraftKings. So on FanDuel, at least, if you want to get up to Keenan Allen for $400 more, I am not going to really disagree with you. I think that probably is the approach you want to go with. You can play both guys if you wanted to, but Allen looks better in terms of just a projection than Mike Williams. On DraftKings, it's a different story because there's like I think a $1,700 difference between the two. Other plays in the value range would be like Devontae Smith, Brandon Cooks. They look good at their tags. Wanted to run it back with like a Denver receiver. All these guys got paid. Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, and Tim Patrick, they all got paid. So they're all going to be a part of their future. I think probably Sutton and Jeudy kind of flip a coin between them. I prefer Jerry Jeudy slightly. You can go down to Kenny Golladay if you wanted to. He's $5,900 only. You have Odell at $58. He should be a lot bigger part of their game plan this week. Moving on to tight ends. The top end, you have Kittle and Pitts. Gronk is still a great option. He's a lot better on DraftKings, but 65 for a guy that gives you 2 touchdown upside in a good spot against Indy. Not something I'm going to argue with, so he's probably still my favorite. Then second guy would be Kittle, then Pitts. If you wanted to go cheaper here, you have Evan Ingram, you have Higbee, you have Freiermuth, I would say at 53 looks appealing. And then I don't really see myself needing to go this cheap, but if you had to, you could take a shot on Parham for GPPs. And defenses, the Texans, good on, a lot better on DraftKings. They're only 23. They're 49 on FanDuel, so I'm not going to, I mean, you could pay for them, but it's a lot easier to get to them on DraftKings. On FanDuel, the defenses I'm looking at are the Eagles against a poor Giants team. They're $4,300. Their defense has stepped up the last couple of weeks. You can go down to the Titans against the Patriots at this salary. You can go down to the Packers at $3,700. Those are just some teams I have my eye on. And that's about it for the video. Thank you for watching. Best of luck tonight, or best of luck tomorrow. If you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. And I'll see you all next time.